South Korea is the most out of this world country for me. Life goes different here, people are different here, and food and traditions and even colors are just different here. It's my last week in South Korea. I stayed here almost 2 months and I feel I'm ready to share my impression of living in this country. Today I'm gonna show you a bit of my daily life in Seoul, the capital of... Hi there! 안녕하세요! Yeah! So yeah, today I'll take you around Seoul, just normal day of my life here. I'll show you prices and talk about cost of living here, I'll bring you to a few of my favorite places and then meet my Korean subscriber. She'll tell us a lot of great insights about life of local people here. But before that I gotta go to this building and see my dentist. And if we are starting the day like this, let's talk about money in Korea first. This is Korean won. The biggest banknote they have is 50,000 won and the smallest is 1,000. The minimal wage is roughly 10,000 won per hour and the dentist I'm going to see today she'll be making approximately 40,000 won per hour. No wonder that root canal treatment cost me 200,000 won per one tooth and I had 2 of them, which is actually a good bargain because I visited this dentist 12 times last month. About 30 minutes each visit and I have no idea how much I will pay for this treatment, let's say in the United States. The only difficult thing is over for today, now just showing you around Seoul. And I finished today's treatment right during lunchtime just to see hundreds and hundreds of office workers flood in this place. This is central area of the city, but this very spot is actually not made for tourists, it's made for just local people. All around me I see a lot of office workers who come here for like grab a cup of coffee or have a lunch during their time break. Over here is a tiny restaurant full of Korean food and you can see that most of the meals they cost anything between like 9 and 13,000-15,000 won. This street is actually full of such restaurants. Over here, for example, a Korean barbecue restaurant, which is a super cool concept of restaurant. You can get like raw meat or vegetables and then fry them onto like special pans that is like being delivered on your table. It costs 13,000 won for 150 grams of raw meat, or I guess better pieces of meat for 19,150 grams of meat. But the cool thing here is that you get to order 1 or 2 portions of meat and you get a big set of local style like appetizers, kimchi and other stuff like tiny vegetable plates. 안녕하세요. I'm filming today. Is it okay if I film you?
Sure.
Here's from one of my favorite spots of coffee around Seoul. This tiny place sells specialty coffee with real interesting coffee beans, and every single time I get here they have a new selection of beans. And because it's a tiny spot with no tables, no area to sit around just for takeout to your coffee, they can maintain low to average price for coffee. Like my cup of coffee cost 5,000 won, which is actually not that cheap, but if you go to a specialty coffee shop in the city with like places to sit and hang out around, it will be maybe 8,000 or 9,000 a cup, so definitely a good bargain. The cheapest coffee at this spot cost 4,000 won, but the cheapest coffee in Seoul I've ever seen. For a cup of Americano I might pay like 2,000 won or even 1,500 won. And also on this street here's a 7-Eleven. Let's get inside and see how much is the stuff. Real quick about groceries here. There are so many tiny convenience stores with anything you might need on the go, but these stores like 7-Eleven or CU or GS25, they don't have any real food that I'd like to get for home. For better grocery shopping I have to go quite far away for a bigger supermarket, which wasn't that easy to find. I actually came here next day just to show you some prices for groceries. Korean supermarket is actually a fun place to explore. So many things I have never seen in my life. Like, look at these giant packages. Would you like to get like a 10 liters of soju or 10 kilos of rice? I don't know, maybe Korean just like everything big. This is one of my favorite spots in Seoul, Yeouido Park next to Han River, and I have no idea how to pronounce it correctly. It's just a great picnic place. I don't need to bring literally anything. I can rent a picnic mat, a chair, a tiny table if I want, and I can order food right here and just enjoy a bit of nature time. Super lovely place, but also super crowded. People come here just hang out with friends, mostly young people, and I see they come here just to spend time together, like have some food, play games. I see a lot of couples just lying on the grass and cuddling each other, perhaps because they don't really have any other place to do that. And another thing that I notice here, I barely see individuals here. Sometimes I can spot like just one single guy or one single girl staying on this kind of mattress, but now I'm pretty sure that most of people that are staying kinda alone here, they just waiting for friends to come. I thought that would be a great idea to come here today, chill under the sun and answer to your questions about life in Korea. So, answering to Nicole's question, is it super expensive there compared to the other places out of state? Yes, South Korea is super expensive if you compare it to the other countries I visited earlier, like Thailand or Vietnam. But when I compare the expenses for daily life here in Korea to my life in St. Petersburg, actually that is not that different, except the cost of accommodation, which is super expensive here. Literally, groceries, shopping, any kind of technology, it's kind of similar prices to what I used to see in St. Petersburg in Russia. This is where I lived before. But accommodation here is ridiculously expensive. And it's the same for local people and foreigners. Here I talked about my monthly rented apartment and about crazy prices for long-term rent, but then I met a local person in the evening who explains it much better. So let's leave accommodation and my quick apartment tour for the evening. Let's continue with the questions I received from you guys, and Jean asks just a simple question: what is your favorite Korean dish so far in Korea? Well, I think my favorite is Korean barbecue. I've been to local barbecue restaurants a few times. There are real simple ones where they just serve you raw meat and vegetables and you grill it yourself, and there are some fancy ones when every table has individual waiter and they literally grill everything for you. And no matter what kind of Korean barbecue restaurant I went to, it was a great experience. I loved that. Anarion09 asks, any language barrier so far? Any locals willing or be able to speak English? And I don't feel any language barrier here so far. It's not like every single person can speak real good English here, but in Korea they kind of have that kind of education cult, and local people, they study a lot, including English. Many times I approached local people here asking something like travel related, and most of the times they were just simply answering to me in English. Like today I went to buy some postal stamps and get some to Korea Post, and the first worker who got interacted with me, he was speaking quite good English. Another thing is that local people might think that their English is actually not that good, so they might be shy. They can tell like, oh sorry, I don't speak English, but in reality I think they do understand basic English quite well. I made quite a few local friends already, and their English is like extraordinary. Low Waist High Melanin asks, would you or would you not stay long term in South Korea? And I think I would rather not stay in Korea long term. The biggest reason for that is very traditional society. I see that people around me, even young people around me, they have so big pressure from the society itself, from older generation. It's very hard for them to just be themselves, and I feel that freedom of people here is kind of limited, not by government like in my country, but just by very traditional and kind of close-minded society. It's very interesting for somebody who grew up in a different culture. It's also quite delicious and stuff, and the nature here is incredible. I think I might enjoy staying here for like medium term, anything between 1 and let's say 3 or 4 months, but really long term I wouldn't do that. A question from Pilot Volunteer: are people aware of Russia's war here, and do people have any sentiment, good or bad, towards Russia or Ukraine? I would say that people in Asia, including Korea, know that there is something happening between Russia and Ukraine. They know the war is going on, but from my personal experience of talking to local people, they are not very concerned about that. It looks like these events between like Russia and Ukraine, it's happening in a totally different world for them. For me, that was only one time in Korea when somebody was genuinely like curious about Russia and Ukraine, and we had kind of conversation about that. That was totally random grandpa I met on a mountain in Busan. He was like in his 60s or even 70s, and yet he could speak a bit of English, and once he heard that I'm from Russia, he asked me a bit about the war, about Russia and Ukraine. We talked a little bit and then just say goodbye to each other. As for other people, it's like every single time when I meet somebody new, I say I'm from Russia, and people don't really have any attitude to Russia-Ukraine war. We just keep our conversation going, and most of cases they don't ask anything about like Russia-Ukraine. A question from Sealy Kodu: biggest cultural difference? Any of them shocking or weird for you? The most weird culture difference for me is that many local people, adults, they keep living with parents. Like in my country, most of people move out from their parents as soon as possible to start their own life or their own family, while here people could be living with parents even when they are like 30, 40 years old. I've talked to quite a few Korean people, and very small amount of them actually live alone, and most of them are living in different cities rather than in families. The rest of my friends, they literally live with their parents, and they say it's very comfortable, very convenient to live with them, and also it's a good way to save money on accommodation and then in the future use the saved money for getting a new apartment once they marry somebody. That was like the weirdest culture difference for me yet. I'm staying here for like already 2 hours and feeling so sleepy, listening an audiobook on my phone and just chilling. Got to Anguk station, which is quite touristy area of the city. Like behind me there is the biggest palace in the city, Gyeongbokgung Palace. Over there is a huge street full of like local crafts and arts. A lot of foreigners over there. Like I feel only foreigners, only tourists go there. I'm not a big fan of going to like super touristy places. I usually skip any palaces like that because once you get there, you get surrounded by like hundreds or even thousands of people, which is not the most pleasant experience. I'm still having 40 minutes until a new friend of mine arrives, so I will use this time wisely. I'm gonna go to Korea post office and send postcards to my mom and my friends. That guy just took all the cards from the post box and delivered it inside of the post office. So I guess my mom postcard will be delivered to Russia soon and my friends will receive it in Italy and China soon. And if any of you would like to receive a postcard from me too, well, let me tell you a bit about my YouTube and Patreon communities. First of all, we have monthly Zoom meetup and every member of my community can join. And also I have special tiers for people who want to receive postcards from me. Either seasonal postcards that I send every season of the year, and also I have level of support for people who want to receive postcards from every country I visit even shortly. That's something what I do only to my mom and apparently to a few of my Patreon supporters. Huge thanks to my members. Even now, doing these YouTube things for years, I'm still quite surprised to see people supporting me in this way.
I'm Francis, live in Seoul. Yeah. This area, it's Anguk. It's very historical, and one cool thing about this area is that there is no tall building. I think it's because it's surrounded by the historical palaces, so you can't really build tall buildings. It's like restricted by law. It's just like very peaceful, nice, and you can just walk around everywhere, like no bustling, busy life here.
Then Francis took me to have some Korean food, and she found a simple and yet very nice place that serves only one meal, rice soup with meat, which was quite delicious. And the rest of the evening we spent at this lovely rooftop place. Francis shared a lot about life in Korea, and I filmed her talking about apartments in Seoul and about safety feeling in Korea versus America. Can you tell a bit what is the average income for people here and how much are apartment rentals?
I think the minimum pay for people here is 200만 won, which has actually gone up quite high over the last few years. And maybe I would say in average people make 250 to maybe 300, I guess. That could be the average, I don't know.
Do you rent apartment here yourself?
Yeah, so I do rent an apartment. So monthly I pay around 70만 won. But I guess office tels, they usually have a lot of maintenance fees. So give and take, maintenance fee can be around 10만 won. Yeah, so that's office tel. Nowadays a popular option because it's quite clean and nice and it's perfect for a single person. It's often a studio, so it's only just, one space. But sometimes they can have an extra room or something. But I guess good things about them is that they have a good transportation system, so they're close to the subways and stuff. Yeah, I live in one. It's nice. But the interesting is the key deposit money is more expensive here compared to other countries. Mine is 1,000만 won. That's the key deposit money, which is pretty typical. I think the lowest I've seen is 500만 won, but it can go higher.
Do you feel that living in Korea is safe? And what kind of safe it is?
I used to live in the US, so I feel in comparison, Korea definitely feels safer just walking around the daily life. Back in, living in the US, I was always scared of like guns. And, you know, whenever like I was in like a more scary area, I felt like a scary neighborhood, I had to be like really aware of my surroundings. But in Korea, like there's not really area like that. It's all public, and there's a lot of cameras actually, so that's filming too. So I think people are in general like feel safer, like even leaving things around, like putting their phones on the table at a cafe and go to a bathroom or something. And even just walking around at night, it feels safe. Although I guess as a woman, I try to like not be on the phone and put my earbuds in while I walk around at night, you know, just be aware. But overall, I think it's one of the safer countries to live in. Yeah.
So my camera literally died, and now we are walking back to subway. Thanks so much to Francis for staying here and explaining like all little details about Korean culture and life. Thank you guys for staying with me. Спасибо and пока.